The man's prison escape was one of the most daring and carefully planned events in history. At that time, the prison was surrounded by a huge number of police officers and special agents, even more than an army. Yet, with only a few simple tools and clever planning, he managed to get out. He started by drawing careful lines on the floor with a marker, marking the spots where he could move without being seen. Then he broke a glass window, brought in some gas cylinders, and placed them in a corner. Using a guard he had already knocked out, he set up a clever trick to make a sniper fire. The sniper shot the guard, and the gas cylinders exploded. Everyone thought the prisoner had died. Meanwhile, Peter quietly slipped onto a paramedic stretcher and was taken out of the prison without anyone noticing. In the ambulance, he met a woman who clearly saw him but didn't do anything. She was actually an FBI agent. Peter himself was working undercover for the FBI. He had joined a dangerous gang to help the police catch the gang members and their buyers in a carefully planned mission. To gain the trust of the gang boss, Peter had to transport 6 kilograms of synthetic drugs. Doing this successfully earned him respect in the gang, giving him access to big deals that a newcomer would never get. Before starting the operation, Peter made sure his wife and daughter were safe. He took them to a secret place, gave instructions, and left his wife a key with strict directions to protect them if anything went wrong. Once they were safe, he rejoined his team. His teammates followed from a safe distance, watching the mission and ready to help if needed. Peter's job was to deliver the drugs to the boss's associates. Then the FBI would arrest the gang and destroy their network. During the mission, a buyer suddenly appeared who wanted to pay a lot of money. Peter quickly realized the buyer was actually a New York police officer. To protect the plan, he had to refuse the sale and act suspicious. Even though the officer tried to prove he wasn't a cop, a gang member shot him. Peter had to stay calm while waiting for backup, but his teammates, thinking the plan had failed, left him behind. Betrayed and alone, Peter had to handle everything himself. He helped hide the officer's body so the gang wouldn't suspect him. After that, he reported to the boss, who, despite the failed deal, gave him a new job: go to prison and expand the gang's drug business there. Peter had no choice. His wife and daughter were still in danger, so he had to follow orders to keep them safe. That night, the gang killed the officer in a violent ritual and left the body for the police to find. The next morning, the investigation began. A bald inspector looked at the scene and thought the Poles might be involved. Video from a nearby cafe showed Peter leaving shortly after the officer arrived, making him a prime suspect. At first, the inspector struggled to get witness information, but eventually, with a colleague's help, he traced several names, including Peter. Records showed Peter was a former military sniper, convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 20 years. However, the FBI had changed his record to show a 4-year suspended sentence, making the investigation more confusing. The inspector realized it would be hard to dig deeper because accessing FBI files takes time. At this point, Peter met Erica again, hoping she or the organization would take responsibility. Instead, he was treated like a stranger. Even though they had recruited him, used him, and sent him on dangerous missions, when things went wrong, they left him alone. Because he had been present when the undercover officer was killed, the organization believed he could no longer be protected. They said his only option was to follow the gang boss's plan: go to prison, stay under the radar, and pretend to be loyal to the gang. Erica explained that his real mission in prison was not only to expand the gang's business, but also to collect a full list of all inmates and guards involved in the drug network. Completing this was the only way for Peter to eventually earn his freedom. Peter was stunned. He thought the FBI would help him, but instead, they were putting him in even more danger. If he refused, he could be charged with many crimes and face more than 12 years in prison. With no one to believe him, all he could do was control his anger. After they left, he quietly took out the hidden recorder, keeping everything they had said as proof for the future. The next morning, the boss's men arrived. The boss's nephew explained that the boss wanted a personal farewell dinner before Peter went to prison. The gesture seemed warm compared to the cold treatment from the FBI. Before leaving, the nephew teased Peter about going out the night before, unaware of the serious meeting Peter had attended. After the nephew left, Peter had no choice but to tell his wife the truth. She struggled to accept it because there was no guarantee he would return or stay safe. With only 2 days left together, Peter focused on quiet moments with his daughter, trying to prepare her for his long absence. That evening, he hid small drug packets inside a bouquet of tulips to use as proof later. The next day, pretending to take his daughter to a movie, he met Erica secretly. They went over the prison entry plan again. The FBI promised to place his wife and child in a safe house during the mission. Peter made 3 conditions before proceeding. A major drug raid had to happen after he entered prison, so his mission wouldn't face competition. The warden had to cooperate to get him into a special rehabilitation program, and his family's safety had to be guaranteed. That night, after returning from the cinema, the boss and his wife came for the farewell dinner, unaware that the bald inspector was secretly watching Peter. Early the next morning, Peter and his wife acted out the final part of the plan. She called the police, pretending to be abused, even cutting her own face to make it believable. The loud smashing of dishes added to the illusion. The police arrived and arrested Peter in front of the inspector, shocking him. This setup allowed Peter to enter prison without raising suspicion from the gang or the authorities. Inside prison, the guards recognized him but didn't pay much attention, thinking he had just returned to his old life. He was put in a cell with 2 of the boss's trusted men. They quickly connected and gave him a knife for protection. Meanwhile, the bald inspector visited Erica with what he had discovered: altered FBI files, unusual activity near the murder scene, and photos hinting at FBI involvement. Erica and her superior stayed silent, but knew the investigation was closing in. Inside prison, the head guard reminded Peter that all illegal business had to go through him. The next day, the police carried out a big drug sweep inside the prison, removing all supplies except the one Peter was waiting for. As part of his plan, Peter was assigned to the roof maintenance team. That night, heavy rain fell. His wife carefully hid the drugs inside a dead bird. Using a drone, operated with the help of the boss's nephew, she dropped the bird onto the roof from above. Early the next morning, while doing his usual cleaning, Peter found the bird. He quietly took out the hidden drug packages and hid them carefully so that no one would notice. At the same time, the bald inspector visited Peter's wife. He told her about his suspicions, saying he thought Peter might be connected to a crime from many years ago. However, he hesitated to act because the FBI seemed very involved in the case, and he did not want to create problems. Peter's wife explained how past events had already made their lives very difficult, and how she had almost no trust left in anyone who claimed to be helping. The inspector understood, but before leaving, he gave her his phone number in case she ever needed help or advice. Inside the prison, Peter now had the goods he needed to restart the drug operation. However, taking control of another gang's area quickly caused problems. He was taken to a private, secluded room, beaten with a baton, and hung up in a way that made it look like a suicide. Even while struggling for air and feeling almost faint, Peter used the last of his strength to tell the guards and gang members in charge that he was there to help dismantle the boss's empire, not to replace it. Hearing this, they lowered him down, but they warned that he only had 3 hours to prove himself if he wanted to get the information he needed. Time was now critical, and every second counted. Meanwhile, Erica's boss pressured her, insisting she leave Peter behind before the New York police discovered that the FBI had been involved. Erica argued that Peter was only a few days away from obtaining the critical list they needed to take down the gang's network. Her boss refused to take responsibility and even threatened to let her face all consequences alone. Despite the threats, Erica refused to betray Peter, knowing that abandoning him would put his life and the lives of his family in extreme danger. Later that night, Peter went into the prison restroom. A black inmate quietly followed him and handed him a folded piece of paper. Inside was exactly what he had risked so much for. Peter held the paper carefully. The next morning, while prisoners were doing their routine cleaning duties, Peter quietly began passing the list to a guard he knew could be trusted. At the same time, he asked to be moved to solitary confinement for his own safety. However, his request was ignored, leaving him confused and anxious. In that moment, Peter realized he had been betrayed once again. A heavy wave of panic and fear rushed through him as he thought about his wife and daughter. Acting quickly, he called his wife, warning her to take their daughter and hide in a safe location immediately. She understood right away that danger was coming. Peter's wife also told him about the bald inspector, who had been investigating the case and genuinely wanted to help. Peter instructed her to give the inspector the secret audio recordings and then leave for safety. As she was preparing to hand over the recordings, Erica suddenly appeared, holding a gun, demanding that the tapes be given to her. Peter's wife had no choice but to comply. Erica left some money behind and instructed her to hide immediately. Alone, Erica listened to the recordings and finally realized the full weight of her betrayal. Every conversation Peter had recorded was on those tapes, including the promises she had made that had lured him into this dangerous trap. Overwhelmed by guilt, Erica understood that she had abandoned him and his family at the worst possible time. Meanwhile, Peter began making his own counterplan. During a quieter moment in his cell, he secretly collected several books from his cellmates and wrapped them around his body to act as protective padding. He wrapped cloth around his hands for additional protection and tried to retrieve a small knife he had hidden under his bed, but it was missing. While searching, a fellow inmate attacked him from behind with a sharp nail, grappling and pushing, before Peter managed to overpower the attacker. He dragged the man to the center of the cell, directly under the surveillance cameras, making sure the guards would notice. One guard quickly hit the alarm. Using a small mirror to observe the situation from a hidden angle, Peter rushed out, knocking a guard unconscious and taking him hostage. Holding the sharp nail to the guard's head, he warned anyone trying to stop him. He dragged the guard into the ventilation room, handcuffed him, and removed the nail from his neck. Spotting a ventilation fan in a nearby window, he used a marker pen to carefully draw lines on the floor, marking blind spots where he could move without being seen. Meanwhile, the boss discovered Peter's actions in prison and sent his nephew with a group of henchmen to attack his wife and child. They brought gasoline. Just as they were about to strike, the bald inspector arrived, shooting and killing one attacker. The other attacker wounded the inspector and held Peter's daughter hostage. In the chaos, Peter's wife acted quickly, freeing herself and taking a precise shot that helped the inspector regain control. News spread quickly that Peter had taken a hostage, and the FBI immediately moved in, surrounding the area with snipers ready to intervene. Despite the overwhelming presence of law enforcement, Peter stayed calm and focused, carefully preparing every step for his escape. He placed a gas cylinder near a window, knowing that his escape options were extremely limited. A police officer came to negotiate and offered a phone so Peter could call his wife and child. Erica's boss also arrived, giving instructions that Peter could speak to his family. Peter confirmed that his wife and daughter were safe, which gave him the confidence to continue his plan. Disguised in a guard's uniform, he positioned the guard to make it look like he was still in control. The sniper, seeing the staged struggle, fired at the guard, hitting the gas cylinder and causing a massive explosion. The explosion made everyone think he was dead. The guard, who was actually Peter, was taken to the hospital. Erica, recognizing him, used her FBI authority to protect him. She gave him documents to help find temporary shelter and created a story that Peter had stolen a gun and escaped, even handcuffing herself with medical staff to make the story believable. Later, Erica reported to her superior that she had seen Peter but had allowed him to leave. At first, she refused to reveal his location, but under pressure, she gave only limited information. Just as the boss prepared to act against Peter, the bald inspector intervened, arresting him and stopping him from taking any further action. In the final moments, Erica arranged for Peter's wife and child to be brought to a park where he could see them safely from a distance. He could not go near them because undercover officers were positioned everywhere. The bald inspector handed Peter passport documents along with a message from Erica, telling him he needed to leave temporarily until it was safe. For the first time in years, Peter could see his wife and child and feel relief and joy, knowing that, at least for now, they were finally safe.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.